Hello and how's it going? My name is, well, here I'm the reply guy for this channel, but in game my username is Shady Dingo, and I've been playing Dead Frontier on and off for a couple years now. Uh, Before it went to sort of like the 3D state that recently was the new version, but now we have, I guess technically it would be Dead Frontier 3, but we're going to call it Dead Frontier 2, and it's available on Steam, free to play, currently in early access. And I've been kind of perusing the Discord and the Reddit for Dead Frontier 2 for a while now, since the release of Dead Frontier 2 on Steam. And a big thing that a lot of people have been asking for is more or less sort of a roadmap. And straight off, admin Neil, however you want to refer to him, the developer for Dead Frontier 2, has been a phenomenally awesome dude when it comes to updates, informing his community of changes in the game, pretty much doing a really great job of listening for updates and changes and being able to implement them based off community feedback, critique, suggestions. He's doing a wonderful job. So today, Monday, 17th of September 2018, he's released we're going to call it like sort of like the early stage of a roadmap. It's his plans for Dead Frontier 2 and pretty much his more or less response to the community on a couple of topics. So we're going to go through, read it all, and kind of get a feel for what's to come with the game. And, I'm going to give my 2 cents on a few things here and there. But so for the most part, this is just sort of like reading the dev notes and then making a video for it so people can follow along. So Dead Frontier was released in early access 12 days ago. And now that I've had some time to reflect and recover, I think it's safe to say that the game is a success so far. Agreed. Perhaps not the mega hit some of us were hoping for, but it's definitely done well. That is, in my opinion, an understatement. I think this game is well on its way to being one of the greatest zombie survival games, zombie simulators, post-apocalyptic simulators, whatever you want to call it, third-person shooters for Steam, especially for the free-to-play market. This rivals, in my opinion, at the moment, and I understand this totally comes from like a level of bias and fanboyishness. It does rival some AAA company level zombie games. I recently was trying to play through Left 4 Dead, found Dying Light, fell in love with Dying Light because, in my opinion, it was or not the Left 4 Dead, but the Dead Island. It was like the updated, revamped Dead Island that I always wanted personally, and it's a great game. I've also put a lot of hours into 7 Days to Die, another great developer, indie developer, putting out some really good content. And with Dead Frontier 2, we're well on our way to having another wonderful, amazing, transformative zombie survival game in the genre. At the moment, yes, it is somewhat repetitive because it's in early access. There's not a whole lot of content, but what's there is quality content, and that's what we're looking for. The review score is better than I expected it to be this early on, and even though our peak concurrent players has dropped a bit since launch, the total number of people playing logging in each day is actually going up over time. Essentially, more people are playing in total. They just aren't going 24/7 like they were in the first 3 days. Like, I was definitely one of those. I've slowed down a bit. One of my main reasons for launching into early access was so that I would be able to get your feedback earlier and using that to go on to make a much better game. As that is exactly what has happened, and now I have a much clearer picture of what you guys would like to see. In this post, I'm going to write down what I feel are the main issues with the game and then post my thoughts on this and how I'm planning to solve or improve it. I want to say that from this stage, I'm not planning to publish proper roadmap with the exact timescales, etc. And I think this is probably a good reason. I'll get into that. For example, I could probably promise to implement outpost attacks by the end of next month or this month. It would actually be possible to do that, but only by rushing and completely ignoring anything new that crops up as we go, which would probably be a mistake. This doesn't mean I'll be slacking off. It just means I won't be making any promises until I know for sure I can keep them. And he just hit the nail on the head there. He doesn't want to, because again, admin is one of a few who are working on this game. And for the most part, I think he handles the majority or like a lot of the legwork and heavy stuff when it comes to game development. And as a game developer, I went to school for it. I have a couple titles currently in the works. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of responsibility, and in my opinion, the dude's a crazy man. So the game's been out for 12 days, and he has released updates and patches and changes almost instantly upon like players like, oh my gosh, this aspect of the game's kind of a little weird. He's like, don't worry, fixed it. And everyone's like, okay, here's this problem. Melee's feeling weird. We'd like to hit more than one zombie at a time. Done. How do you think about that? Okay, cool. Like, he's going hard. He definitely has a vested interest in this game, and it's nice to see that from a developer and a gamer perspective. A developer who wants to actually make their game better and really, truly, honestly improve upon it. That's fantastic. We couldn't ask for anything better than that, and especially from like pretty much a one-man pony show. Like, this is fantastic. He has my respect as both a gamer and a developer myself. Generally speaking, my aim is to first focus on the small improvements, which makes the biggest impact. Only once when we have the core game working nicely, then I will turn my attention to the big features and everything else. Melee combat is too clunky, hard to use. I agree that there is a significant learning curve with the melee combat, and that it was incredibly hard to use against groups of zombies. In the last patch, I made some changes that I believe make melee a lot more usable, namely the ability to stun, but not damage, up to 3 zombies in one hit, directional stuns, and directional dodge. With those changes, I think melee combat with zombies is now a lot more forgiving and far less annoying. A lot of people have suggested that melee swings should not cause the character to step forward, and or that you should be able to move during swinging. I actually tried a test version of this melee combat before making the above changes, and I must say I did not like it. In my opinion, it was far too easy to stay out of range of the enemies and just whack them before they got anywhere near you. From an animation perspective, I also felt it looked far less realistic since there was no weight behind the character's attacks. I have a sneaking suspicion that if I actually implemented this, there would be a lot of players who would want me to just revert it back to the old system. So, if it becomes clear that the community really wants a big rework, then I will probably do it. But for the moment, at least, melee will stay roughly as it is, and I will move on to other things. And I kind of agree with that. Like, for the most part, I don't think melee is meant to be a strong, standalone, you can just melee your way all the way to the end game. That's not how the last Dead Frontier was. You had zombies who would explode upon death, which, if you were in the vicinity, did lots of damage, and as someone who's using melee, you didn't really have like a halberd to keep yourself at distance. You were running up with like a hammer or a katana or whatever. So you would take a lot of that damage, and what it should be is a really strong loot build kind of weapon. It's a secondary weapon when you're dealing with just regular zombies, not meant to be something you use when fighting special infected, when fighting bosses like, I don't know, Tendril, Choir especially, things like that. You don't want to use melee against those guys. You want to keep a distance. Firearms are far more effective. They do far more damage. And melee's really only strong when doing surprise attacks. Like, for instance, I know I think it's 4 times. Weapons do 4 times damage, only melee weapons, when you do a surprise attack, which is the first swing on any zombie. And if it doesn't kill it in one shot, then you have to swing some more. So I agree for the most part. And I also animate a lot of characters. From a game developer animation perspective, having the ability to sit still and attack, it does add like a level of cheese factor. We were able to get away with that with the old Dead Frontier because that was sort of the style and aesthetic of that game. This is a different sort of game style, if that makes sense. Having the movement forward, having the full animation, it's the better of the two that we have. It looks better, it feels better, and it's kind of clunky. But honestly, for the most part, especially with this new update where you can hit more than one zombie, you at the very least stun them. So you're not hitting one and still continuing to move into two more zombies or three who will just tear you apart. With a high enough attack speed, with this update, I think melee is in a really good spot here. I could be completely entirely wrong. It's just my thoughts and opinion. I'm like level 13 or 14. I love using melee. I have the melee attack stat or perk at level 3 at the moment. I wanted to get it to 4 maxed out, but I feel like it's in a really good spot. I think this update with maybe even the Berserker, which helps improve knockback percentiles, really makes melee a strong, it's in a strong place. Is it viable over firearms in the mid-late game? Probably not so much, but it's in a good spot. So I'll just leave it there. It's too hard to find things / NPCs. I think the best solution for this would be an auto map that fills in as you explore, adds names of the NPCs, and provides other info, which can be hard to remember. I see this as a high priority item, but it will make a fair amount of work to complete, so it may not appear for a while yet. I think, and we've talked about this a lot on the Reddit, subreddit for this, it's having a map of some sort would be incredibly valuable and incredibly useful. And I think the idea of having a map fill out as you explore, especially since every sort of location changes upon reset, it would be a really helpful thing, especially when you're doing missions where you're looking for an NPC. Or better yet, when you're going through a building, doing a mission, you find another NPC in there who has a quest for you, and then you have to come back and find that NPC, but you don't remember where they are. But you already previously explored that place, so you could just pinpoint exactly where they're at and just find them. I think that would be a really big thing to improve the game with. Again, it's something that's going to come probably far later, but at the very least, it's on his radar. I can sleep easy with that in mind. There's also, the community has been doing a lot of work for tracking quests on the Dead Frontier 2 Wikia. So that sort of mission tracker helps out a lot. It's community run, so it relies on people completing the quest and then going back to the Wikia and sharing their findings, and then someone compiles the whole list for everyone else's viewing pleasure. So that's kind of a thing that helps alleviate that difficulty. Missions are too hard, confusing, or weird. Missions do definitely have a lot of weird quirks and other issues that make them difficult to complete. Some are bugs, others are just design oversights, and I will definitely be working on these soon. Some people have suggested making a notice board instead of random NPCs that could be hard to find. I personally think that the auto map will solve this issue, and I do like the extra bit of immersion you get with finding random NPCs in the world. So I prefer not to add a notice board if we can avoid it. I think I agree with that. I don't like having to go through all the little home bases like in Dalbo and Haverport, or Haverbrook, and like Duskwood or wherever it is, the level 20 zone. Going through that building at least 1 or 2 doors deep and trying to find all the NPCs before running out and doing all those missions can be a little tedious, but I don't mind it so much. I kind of agree. I think once we have the autofill map upon exploration, it's going to make it a lot easier. Part of me really likes the idea of having a notice board, maybe as an additive feature for different sort of content. Like maybe a notice board for, hey, there's like a super crazy boss in this location that we need taken care of. Like maybe notice board could be for group missions or group events, something that can't normally be done solo, like the current missions that we have now, where it's just like get some blood, clear a building out, find this person, find an earring, are they dead or alive, you find out, clear the street. That's something anyone can do, but maybe create a notice board for something that requires more of a group to try and complete. Maybe like even add some sort of puzzle or mini game. Add like another level of difficulty or mechanic. I think that would be really interesting. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? Too many loading screens. It should be an open world, etc. I personally like the loading screens. It gives the game that nostalgic Resident Evil vibe. They allow people with older PCs to enjoy the game, and they help make it. They help to make even slow zombies feel challenging. They've also made development a lot easier for me, especially when it comes to multiplayer logic. A criticism I hear a lot of for the open world games is that the zombies aren't a threat and that you spend too much time wandering around empty landscapes. This is because it's technically very hard to have enough zombies running around and other interesting stuff at once to even remotely fill a large area like this. If Dead Frontier 2 were to go to open world, then we'd have the same problems. I feel that we'd lose a lot of our uniqueness and become yet another zombie survival game. I kind of agree with that. Again, like he was making the game as accessible and playable for everyone as possible, which is a huge undertaking in and of itself. I mean, thankfully, there's enough sort of settings in the game where you can kind of control, if you have a beefy computer, you can have all the settings on. I can get away with that. But I understand there's a lot of people with potato laptops who also want to play the game who could never in their dreams hope to have all the settings set to high or maximum and have all the shadows and all that information going on at once. The computer would just melt. So we bring that down a bit, and having the smaller instanced environments makes that a lot easier for it to process. Yeah, it would be really cool to have like an open world like World of Warcraft or Grand Theft Auto, even in a world like that open space, that vastness where there's no loading screens except when you're entering and exiting buildings, and then have it also be a zombie survival game, maybe to the level that Dead Frontier 2 is. That would be incredible. At the same point, it would be hard not to feel like another, as he kind of said, like another open world survival zombie game where we have so many of those already, and a lot of them are, I mean, granted, a lot of them are similar to, like Left 4 Dead, or not Left 4 Dead, but 7 Days to Die. We have H1Z1, things like that, where there is that sort of open epicness, that open world where anything can happen. You can just explore for hours upon hours. But again, I think it would be a huge undertaking, and I think it would be a hindrance. And I don't think I think it also strays away from what Neil wants the game to be. He can be malleable to suggestion and updates to the game, and he may very well change. He may eventually change his mind, be like, you know what? Yeah, you know what? You're right. No more instances. It's just going to be a bigger, better Dead Frontier 1, which doesn't sound like it would be a bad idea, but we don't know yet. I'm personally enjoying where the game is now. It's quick, it's easy. I don't feel like it's too stressful. I mean, even if it were to get to the point where it's an open world and we have to deal with the vast openness and everything, the game has to process that, my PC has to process all that. I'm confident I would be able to get away with that. I can't say the same for other users. So, to turn Dead Frontier 2 into an open world game would mean to completely rewrite half the game. That would mean in another year with no updates, and the final result would end up being worse than what we have now. It would undoubtedly introduce a lot of new bugs, performance issues, and therefore I think making the game an open world is simply not realistic anytime soon. Maybe it's something I could look into a few years down the line, but to attempt it now I think would be a huge mistake. And I agree with him on that. Having said all that, I do understand that loading screens can get annoying after a long play session. I think the most reasonable solution here is to simply skew future content towards more and larger outdoor environments with smaller building interiors. For example, a fairly large but not huge farm area with just a few buildings to visit, a forest with some shacks, outpost attacks, world bosses, PvP zones will also happen outdoors. So I think that there would be a lot to break up the door loading. Too repetitive. I think this is just a side effect of me releasing such a small chunk of the game and will certainly improve over time. Once outpost attacks, world bosses, barricading, competitions, PvP modes, crafting, clans, etc. are added to the game, it will be bursting with variety. Content updates which not only expand the size of the world, but add completely new locations, types, which again make the game feel a lot nicer too. Unfortunately, all this will take some time to complete. So in the short term, I plan to add some random events in the streets, such as bosses, mini hordes. I will be adding a dedicated outdoor PvP area. These updates will be quite quick and easy to add, and should make the game a little more interesting while you wait for the bigger updates. That is exciting. I'm really excited to see crafting and barricading and world bosses and OAs. That'd be dope. Not enough content. The game needs more content, and it will definitely be added. Personally, I'd like to see at least triple the number of weapons and armor and clothing, double the number of enemies, types at least, lots more outdoor and indoor locations, a much higher level cap. Much higher. How high are we talking? Ooh, I wonder how that's going to play into with prestige. All of these will be coming, but as with the bigger features, it will take some time to complete. Instead of doing one big content drop, most likely I'll break them into smaller sections and release them in between the bigger feature updates. Cool. Inflation and market chaos. This is a zombie apocalypse, not shopping at Walmart. Total chaos is what we want. However, inflation does need to be reined in a little, so I will definitely be adding some cash sinks. One idea I like is the idea of an NPC that allows players to donate cash. When enough cash has been donated in a certain time period, everyone in the game will receive a bonus, like maybe perhaps more XP. I will also be adding more normal sinks like dyeing clothing, which was something we had in the previous game, and buying vehicles. I like the idea of having cash sinks, and especially when in terms of cosmetics. Neil has mentioned that he definitely wants to make it as not pay to win as possible, which was kind of where the previous game went to. And there's a fair level amount of people who are like skeptical of how long Neil's going to try and hold this off for. I think that it's possible that he will be able to prolong, if not indefinitely, ensure that the game does not have any pay-to-win features, any sort of microtransactions that would give anyone an immense upper hand over any other player or the whole community at large. For instance, I don't know, unlimited Gatling guns and Wraith cannons and ghost ammo, and I digress. So, a cash sink where it's sort of community run, where the whole server and everyone online gets a boost. Extra damage, extra experience, extra loot speed, extra move speed. You don't have to worry about eating or drinking for 5 hours. You don't have to worry about, using gas. Like, that would be crazy cool. But again, make it community driven, where everybody has to donate together like $1 million to like an NPC, and then once it hits that threshold, boom, everyone has that boost until reset. That would be fantastic. I think that would be a really great money sink to an extent. I think also having the, being able to have cosmetic changes for your vehicles would be really cool, because right now they're just glorified backpack mules, which is fine. You can trick them out, but they all look like rust buckets. Let's have a little bit of color and change with that. Dyeing clothing kind of brings me back to the old style of Dead Frontier 1.2. You could dye clothing. You could dye them randomly for a cheaper price, or get a specific color for a higher price. You also could what was known as Mastercraft and Godcraft, where you got stats added to it. Are we going to have a stat reroll for items? That would be a really great money sink. Would that be what crafting is involved with? So there's a lot of really cool stuff here to kind of think about and kind of get a little excited about. And then the UI. So market UI, ugly UI, other UI. Yes, it is real pain to use currently, and so I will attempt to rework things to keep it all in one screen rather than flipping between constantly. I like the design posted on the subreddit, which I've seen. I'll go ahead and pull it up right now. This looks infinitely more intuitive and better. I think what we're missing is a refresh button, because pretty much you buy something, sell something, and then you get a bunch of errors being like, hey, uh, it's not there, and then you have to close it and open it back up again. Uh, Being able to search by name, type of item, subcategory, rarity, and a specific stat you're looking for. Oh, bravissimo. Fantastic. Yeah, let's get this. Absolutely. And you have a sell button. That's fantastic. Yeah. We need that badly, and I hope we get it. This is a high priority since the market plays a huge part in the game currently. It also shouldn't take too long to complete. With him saying that, I think we'll have it in less than a week. Mark my words. What is it? The 17th? We're going to have this before the 24th. I can math. I didn't have to use a calculator. I used my brain. UI is ugly, needs icons. Yes, the UI is rather basic and not super fun to look at when compared to other modern games. I would definitely like to improve upon this at some point. However, much like door loading, this setup has made development much quicker and easier. Having such simple text-based system will allow me to add new features and content at a much faster pace. Therefore, I think it would be unwise to move towards prettier but harder to update system too early. This will be sorted out, but for now, it's a low-level priority. I agree. You know, he's got a system right now that is very rudimentary. It's very text-based, but it works. It works because, again, as he said, it's much easier to pump out updates and changes. And again, the focus right now at this stage of the game for the early access of this game that is not even 2 weeks old is to make sure that the core gameplay is perfect or near perfect. Once that has been laid to rest, we can make the game have all of its shiny bells and whistles and make it look as pretty as we need it to. But until then, we're going to have to look like a discount store, thrift shop, you know, kind of thing. So just blast your Macklemore and just get through it. Just muscle through it. Just, you know, use your imagination. Think it. Ooh, you know, it'd be really cool, maybe. And this might be a little reaching, but because it's on Steam, and maybe we can have a Steam workshop, it would be really dope if maybe we can have mods, and then mods can be put in place for UI updates. I don't know. Other UI issues. Other than how it looks, the UI has a lot of other quirks that can be quite fiddly at times. You guys have suggested a lot of a lot of quality of life improvements, such as use consume on loot for food and drink, and I guess medical, easier refueling, sorting, stacking, and luckily most of these will not be especially hard to add in. Therefore, I will be looking to apply as many of these as I can in the very near future. That would be fantastic, because I'm tired of picking up a bunch of food and stuff, and it's in my inventory, and I want to get it out, but I have to go in my inventory, consume, clear out the inventory, then open it. I mean, granted, being able to consume on pickup, or have like a little tick and everything, have that, it would speed up the process probably by a small minor percentage. But again, these are minor quality of life features that just make the game more enjoyable, and I can clear buildings at faster, probably 20% faster. I would imagine 30% faster if I'm eating and drinking on the go, rather than, oh, there's food again. Look at my bar. Okay, I need to eat some food, max it out. Move on. Like, just, oh, done. Move on. So much faster. Granted, that's not a realistic interpretation of how it would necessarily play out, but it's my estimation, and I'm doing for entertainment value. Gosh darn it. Updates coming soon. To sum up everything, here's what I'm planning to add in the very near future, the TLDR. Mini random outdoor events, so that's going to take priority. A dedicated outdoor PvP zone, okay. An auto map, woot. Market redesign, yeet. Small UI quality of life improvements, fantastic. Small mission improvements, I can dig it. Cache syncs, important. Bug fixes, as always. Updates coming not quite so soon. After the above are complete, I will most likely move on to outpost attacks and the first content update. Smiley face. Conclusion. Sorry if this is a huge wall of text, guys. Don't worry, you got people like me who are willing to read it to people, because that's what we do. I hope all of that communicates what's going on in my brain currently, since we're constantly asking. And should you at least give it should at least give you a vague idea of how the game is going to progress in the coming weeks and months. No doubt this will disappoint some of you who are hoping for bigger things. Don't be disappointed. Please do remember that I'm only one guy with a wife and 4 young kids to look after. You're a madman. You have 4 kids and you're making this game? I have 1 kid and I barely get time to play video games. What is your secret? Tell me. So there are limits to what I can realistically achieve. Dude, shut the hell up. You are such... with that knowledge in my head, I am beyond words that he's able to do all that he does. I have no excuse for anything in life. I have no excuse not to do anything and achieve anything. Good Lord. I'm never going to complain ever again. Still, I really do think that the final version of Dead Frontier 2 will be pretty amazing, and I'm really excited for the future. Thanks for reading, Neil. So there it is, folks. That's the the sort of tiny-ish roadmap. That's what we can expect. And honestly, a lot of these based on what he's been doing. And I'm sure at a certain point he might even need just a little bit of a developer break when coming up with all these updates and changes and everything. I see this happening, the majority of it happening by the end of the year. The majority of it. The only things I think of the updates coming soon that may be postponed till after the holiday season. Probably the outdoor events and hordes. Everything else, in my opinion, is totally doable. Based on what he's done so far for the game since release, cakewalk. It's going to take time, but it's a cakewalk. Compared to outpost attacks and other big content updates and adding more stuff to the game, cakewalk. I'm pumped. I'm pumped. It's so I am so in love, and I'm trying not to be biased, kind of. But it's so refreshing to have a developer who is just so in tune with his community. I worked for an indie game company who did their best to make an update and changes for their game, and it didn't turn out the way they planned. And and to be fair, there were a lot of factors involved, but a key one was not listening to their community, in my opinion. As indie developers, we are obligated to do everything we can for the community, to an extent, of course, but do the most that we can. These are the players who put hours upon hours into something that we've made. To kind of turn at them and say, you don't really know what you want from this game, so I'm just going to develop it the way I want to, is incredibly ignorant and close-minded and will yield no success, in my opinion. Neil is doing everything but that, and it's fantastic. And I'm really looking forward to these updates. Are you guys looking for these updates? I'm looking forward to the updates. So, I don't know, drop a comment down below, like and subscribe. I'm going to be, following Dead Frontier pretty closely, as close as I can, doing updates, videos, and stuff like that. Maybe even live streams once this little one gives me time to do live streams. I love you.
Dad.
Yes?
Could you take off our shirt?
That's a weird request. Give me a moment. So, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoy this video. Let me know your thoughts down below, and hopefully I'll see you on the frontier. Take it easy, guys.